My girlfriend Katie, 22F, and I, 26M, met in college and have been together for 4 years. I'm her first relationship. Because her parents were strict in high school. Our parents are religious and don't believe in premarital bedroom intimacy. I don't care, but she's close to her parents. So we've been waiting since she graduated. I was planning to propose soon. Had a ring picked out. I was head over heels for her. But that all changed last weekend. Katie has a male best friend, Liam, since high school. Her parents didn't like him as he claimed to be gay. She was excited to go to the same college as him, because it meant they could hang out. I don't like male best friends, but he was gay, so whatever. Except he came out as bisexual 2 years ago. I didn't like the vibe when he was around her. So I asked Katie to stop hanging out with him alone. She accused me of controlling her. I told her it was her choice, but I wouldn't stick around if she kept seeing him alone. It was our biggest problem, but we worked through it. The compromise was Liam and his boyfriend could hang out with us as couples. But we only got together twice before he transferred colleges. Katie stayed in contact with them. Remained friends after they broke up. Formed a gaming server with them and others. Most friends were men, but she assured me nothing was going on. Last weekend was Liam's birthday party and he invited her. Katie wanted to talk to me first. She wanted to go as she hadn't seen him in 2 years. It was a 2-hour drive away. Friends from the server were going. Liam's girlfriend would be there too. I had a trip planned so couldn't go, but trusted her. The problem started Saturday night. She texted me when leaving and when she got there. Texted a few times throughout. She planned to drive back at 9 or 10, but text stopped. I assumed she was having fun. Didn't bother her but watched her location. She got home at 2 a.m. Unusual, but I trusted her. Sunday morning I called and she didn't answer. Texted back saying she was sleeping. Had a hangover. Strange as Katie doesn't drink. I told her to drink water. Got on my flight home. Found her in my bed. She has a key but hardly uses it. I asked why she didn't rest at her place. All week she's been sick. Took off work. I've been checking on her. Worried but suspicious. Late last night she woke me sobbing. First time she'd left my room since I got home. I consoled her. Asked what was wrong. She said she did something horrible. Got drunk by accident. Liam offered to drive her home. 3 friends followed. They helped her to her apartment. Then she had intimacy with them. Katie doesn't remember much. Been sick since. Trying to figure out how to tell me. Because she loves me but gave away her virginity. She wanted to tell me when I got back. But couldn't. Begged me not to break up. I need time to think. She begged not to go back to her apartment. I let her stay in my room. Heard her crying all night. I was in tears. Can't believe she threw away our relationship. Trust is broken. At work can't focus. Part of me wants her out. Another part wants to talk. Can't tell which is more unreasonable. Left work early to check on her. She was as I left her. Cried. Then I brought up what happened that night. Did she actually want any of that to happen? A lot was said, but long story short, as many of you suggested, she did not. To clear some things up, the friends she was with at the party weren't just random people she met online. They were personal friends of Liam, who she had been best friends with for 8 years. While she had never met them in person, they were people she had talked to and gamed with over the past year or so. I would hear her talking with him over the headset, and I never noticed anything strange. She's pretty shy and introverted, so I was happy for her to have friends to play with. While she gamed, they weren't all men either. According to her, there were 4 or 5 women in the server as well. Of the people at the party, 3 of the men and 2 of the women attended. Also there were Liam's girlfriend, a couple of other friends and a few of their partners. All in all there were only around 15 guests. And everyone knew each other for the most part. It was never meant to be a huge event, just to get together. Of Liam's closest friends at his house, drinking wasn't even supposed to be a big part of it. At the beginning of the party, a lot of them just gamed together, since they hadn't been able to in person for a while. There was no big girl/guy separation, as many people at the party were LGBT. Plus some people gathered in small groups to chat, just general mingling etc. About midway through the party, one of the guests poured everyone some mystery shots. Katie rejected it at first, but Liam urged her to take one for his birthday. When everyone else heard she'd never taken a shot before, they all egged her on too. It was just one shot. Liam insisted it would wear off well before it was time for her to head home. And if not, she could just wait as long as needed until she felt comfortable driving. She felt like she had to from that point. Things became a little less clear. There was more hanging out and there were more shots. People she wasn't sure which ones kept handing her drinks and insisting she join in. She didn't want to ruin Liam's party, and she trusted that if nothing else, he would look out for her, even though she didn't feel right. Katie said she believed he would have told her if something was wrong, and he kept reassuring her that everything was okay. She remembers feeling really sick. She remembers seeing others passed out on the couch. She remembers Liam saying he wanted to personally take her home, driving her car to make sure she was okay. He said he felt bad that he had let her get so messed up. She remembers one of her friends from Discord telling Liam he would follow them in his car to take Liam back afterward. And she remembers 2 more guys from Discord getting into his car. She remembers Liam giving her a bottle of water in the car, to help her sober up. She recalls them carrying her up the stairs to her apartment laughing and being brought inside. I'm not going to describe any further than that. She didn't want any of what happened. Was she naive maybe? Did she probably miss some red flags and make some choices she shouldn't have? Sure, but Katie did not deserve that. The fault belongs to the men who did it. She didn't want to file a police report, and I'm not giving her an ultimatum. I've read up a lot on how horrific that process can be, and I fully support her decision. Of course, if she ever changes her mind and decides she does want to file a report, I'll be there for her through that too. What we are going to do is see a doctor. Part of the reason Katie says she spent most of this time curled up in bed is that she's been in a lot of pain. She really doesn't want to be poked and prodded down there. But after some convincing and reassurance, she agreed she's going to be seen on Monday. And will also get pregnancy and STI testing, which we're equally worried about, done while we're there over the weekend. We've talked a lot, we've both cried a lot. There's been lots of hugs and giving space when needed. I've opened up the curtains in the bedroom so she gets some sunlight in there, at least for anyone who is concerned. No, I'm not making her go back to her apartment. And for the pricks who suggested it. No, I'm not leaving her before or after her healing, to find someone who isn't damaged. And no, I will not be ratting her out to her parents. I'm taking the entire next week off to stay home and take care of her, go to as many doctor's appointments as needed, set up therapy etc. I don't think I can ever make up for leaving her alone the way I did this past week. But I will be there for her through anything and everything that comes next, whatever that may mean again. My husband brought home a python without even asking me, saying it's always been his childhood dream. But now it's become my worst nightmare, and I'm not sure our marriage will survive. 6 months ago our corn snake unexpectedly died. My husband, 26 male, and I, 24 female, were both very upset. He was a cute little guy and still very young. My husband has owned several small reptiles during his lifetime, and he told me he was thinking of trying a milk snake this time instead of a corn or a garter. Instead, 2 months after our corn died, he came home with a baby Burmese python. Apparently it's always been his dream to own a Burmese. Not only am I pissed that he got something like that without consulting me. On the upside, where we live they are legal. But I had several reservations that have only grown since we've owned it. I have GAD. And that thing triggers my anxiety like no other. When I was doing research about Burmese pythons, I kept reading stories about them killing pets, children and even their owners. So now, I'm freaked out and have barely slept for 4 months. This is made worse by the fact that my husband has no experience with large snakes. And the larger the python grows, the more it shows, and also by us having a cat. The other snakes we've had, our corn snake and my husband's old garter snake, pose no threat, but now I constantly worry that the python is going to get out and eat her. I've taken to locking the cat in our bedroom at night, which interferes with our sleep, since she meows and scratches at the door, and I constantly worry about her when she's home alone. I'll reiterate, this thing is freaking huge. He is already 6 feet long. I'm home more than my husband, so I have to feed it and change its substrates often. I hate doing both so much, especially now that he's graduated to eating rabbits and pigs. I honestly think that since my husband bought him without consulting me, that caring for it should be his sole job. But I'm not going to let it go hungry or live in its own waste out of pride. I honestly don't think we'll be able to give this snake the best quality of life, which I think is essential for all pets. He's getting too big for the tank he's in, which is his third since we've gotten him, and I don't think we have the room in our house for the enclosure my husband wants to build him. His food is very expensive and eating into our savings, but it's what he needs, so we can't downgrade. The python does not deserve to live in a tiny space and eat inadequate food, because my husband wanted one as a kid. At the same time, it's a good possibility it could eat us out of house and home. I don't want kids while we own a python, and these things can live up to 20 years. I don't want to never have children, which I've dreamed of because of a python. Because of all these reasons, but especially the ones about our cat and its quality of life, I think we should rehome the python, preferably to a wildlife sanctuary or something. I've gently brought all of this up to my husband, how much mental anguish it causes me, how worried I am for our cat, how the snake is unsustainable. And all he's done is tell me to get over it, accuse me of not caring about his happiness, and tell me I'm being prejudiced against animals that aren't cute and cuddly. None of this is true, not even the last accusation. I liked smaller snakes a lot. How can I communicate productively with my husband about this issue? He already loves this snake. And I think that's getting in the way of him seeing reason. Edit for the snake people. I acknowledge now that our husbandry is probably wrong, proving my point even more. Also, I have been informed that the snake probably wasn't a baby if it's at this size now. I am not the most knowledgeable about snakes. The snake is gone and my cat is alright. Here's how it happened Thursday night. While I was replying to people in my post, several people suggesting talking to my husband's friend who owns Burmese pythons, is an experienced reptile keeper and could be a huge help. I was too blinded by the situation or my own anxiety to even think of that. I messaged him on Facebook Thursday night and told him the situation. He was shocked at just how bad things were. But apparently, he tried to warn my husband that owning small snakes and then jumping to a berm is like thinking owning house cats makes you qualified to own a tiger. But my husband didn't listen. He's been busy going to reptile shows. Dude breeds venomous cobras. He's kind of a badass, so he only saw the snake in person once, when we just got it, and was immediately disturbed. When I told him about the overfeeding, my husband's desire to start it on live food, and the fact that it free roams and is handed alone, he told me he'd come over the next day, Friday, and give my husband a real talking to, as well as do anything he could to help us rehome it. I decided I couldn't live another day in the house like that, and neither could my cat. So Friday morning, I moved out to my mother's while my husband was at work. It was a bit sneaky, but I knew that if I tried to leave while he was home, he'd try to convince me to stay. I called him on his lunch break though, and told him I'd left until the snake was gone. He was very upset, but started accusing me of being so petty as to let a snake wreck our marriage. I had nothing productive to say to that, so I told him I'd talk to him later. Well, my husband's friend was so angry at what he saw of the snake, that when he got to the house when my husband was home from work, he gave him the tongue lashing of his life and told him in plain terms that now that he saw how woefully inadequate we were as big snake keepers, there was no way he was going to let the snake stay at our house. Being yelled at really affected him. When my husband drove over to my mother's to talk to me, he looked like a kicked puppy. He broke down and told me that he loved me, that he was sorry for the hell he put me through, and that it had taken having reason yelled to him by an expert for him to really see what was going on, and that he understood now that the snake could no longer live with us. I know that at that point that the sorrow he felt was due to having his snake taken away. Not of real understanding. Not yet, so don't worry. He's not completely off the hook. It was cathartic to hear though. His friend contacted a herpetology society he works with regularly. And then a member of that society whose specialty is rehabilitating snakes that irresponsible pet owners get and then mistreat on his ranch. So Snake went yesterday to this guy's ranch where he'll be fed the right food and go on a diet. Apparently, and live in a space big enough for him. My husband and I have talked a lot about this, and he acknowledged that his fervent desire to fulfill his childhood dream made him careless and selfish. That he wasn't trying to be malicious towards me, but he just wanted the snake so badly. He'd do and say anything to keep it. It still seems like though that he hasn't learned. Which I'm not expecting this early, but is still a mite disappointing. He talked yesterday about getting a ball python and I put my foot down. I don't think we should get another snake for a long time on Sunday. I sat him down and asked him to tell me the truth of how he got the python. Because walking into a pet shop for a milk snake and just finding a Burmese was sounding more and more implausible the more I thought about it. He admitted that he arranged to get one with a breeder online. While he was telling me he wanted a little snake, meaning he was actively lying to me. This breeder is also a state away, meaning my husband participated in something illegal when he met up with him to get it, since transporting Burmese pythons across state lines is against the Lazy Act. I'm very angry about this. I'm upset about his lies. And I'm upset that he blew me off for months. He admitted he lied just because he knew I'd say no, which shows such an immaturity. That almost disgusts me. I'm upset that he broke the law. I'm upset that he only listened to what I told him when it came from someone else. Apparently he's been having a quarter-life crisis that he didn't tell me about. Because he feels that he should have accomplished more with his life. At 26 he never went to college. I feel sympathy for him with that. But that's no excuse to treat me badly. I moved back home with Kitty last night. But our marriage is in severe jeopardy right now due to the lying and the lack of respect my husband has shown me. But I made vows to stick with him and I don't take those lightly. We're going to be getting counseling, which I hope will make him really see what was wrong with what he did rather than a knee-jerk response to being in trouble, so to speak, and will strengthen us. If not, well, I'll have to consider my options. Second update 1 month later. Hi, I'm back. The snake is still gone, but I guess I'm coming back out of desperation. People message me wanting to know how I was doing. Anyway, on the surface, therapy has been going well. My husband has been doing everything right. He's been contrite, open-minded, and treats me like a princess at all times. I can tell at home that he's making a conscious effort to listen to my opinions and thoughts and incorporate our therapist's suggestions into our lives. I feel like the hugest jerk saying this, but I don't think it's enough. Over these past weeks, I've had to come to terms with the fact that something about how I view my husband has fundamentally changed. And finally, after extensive soul searching a few days ago, I realized what it was. I have no respect for his intelligence anymore. After all this, that is very, very important to me, and now it's just gone, and I don't know how it can come back without him getting a personality overhaul. It's killed my physical attraction to him. I normally have a high libido, and prior to all this, we made love 4 to 5 times a week. Now since all this went down, we've been intimate 3 times. To be fair, while the snake was here, we were down to 2 to 3 times a week, but it was still more frequent than this. Despite all the changes he's making, he's still himself, and I don't think I can like who I know him to be now. He's still his goofy, absent-minded self who needs me to balance the checkbook and pack his lunch. I can't respect that anymore. I don't want to be his mom or a naggy sitcom wife. I used to love doing these things for him throughout our relationship. I've taken care of him, patched him up, and helped him solve his problems. I always saw it as the ultimate expression of love. Now I'm just sick of it. He can tell something's still wrong. He's irritated about my lack of forgiveness and lack of an intimate drive lately. When he's objectively doing all the right things, but his lack of understanding towards my apprehension makes my feelings even more pronounced. I realized the other day that I love him dearly as a friend. I've known him since I was 9 years old, but no longer as a husband. That devastates me. I can't believe I'm thinking divorce after less than a year of marriage. I feel like such a failure. I haven't broached these feelings in therapy yet because they crystallized only a few days ago. But I don't know how to start because I know saying them will mean my marriage will be over. I have talked to my mom and friends about this and they all tell me to wait longer to stick it out because I made vows. But I feel like I found out something fundamental about my husband that I wish I never had, and that nothing can be the same now. I really tried to work through the feelings, but after 3 months we separated. After being separated for half a year, we ended up making love. My grandma had just died. I was devastated and he came to the funeral to support me. And because he'd known her forever and loved her too, we went home together after the family lunch and we ended up having comfort lovemaking. Neither of us wanted kids at that point, but my IUD had slipped into my cervix at some point before this and I ended up getting pregnant. Both of us were unsure about introducing a kid into our relationship but decided to get back together and make another effort. I had always wanted to be a mom and didn't want to abort. We found out pretty early into the pregnancy that it was actually a molar pregnancy, meaning that instead of a normal fetus, I was pregnant with a tumor. I had the mole removed. But I was one of those lucky people who develops cancer from their molar pregnancy. Luckily, the cancer was caught when I was only at stage 2 and responded really well to chemotherapy. I've been cancer-free since 2016. However, my ex's behavior when I was extremely sick from chemo. We had stayed together after losing the pregnancy caused me to put my foot down and want a divorce. He wouldn't or couldn't pick up the slack around the house and I couldn't deal with it anymore. I felt like I couldn't depend on him for anything, not even when I had cancer. Literally a week after I was told I was cancer-free, I told him I was moving out and wanted a divorce. I lived with my mom for a year while our divorce was being finalized and a bit after it, and then decided to get a job in a new city because I needed a new beginning. I also decided to fulfill a dream of mine. I'd been mulling over for a while and went back to college to get my BSN in 2017. I graduated in 2019 because I was in an accelerated program for people who already have another degree, and I now work as a neonatal nurse. The job can be really wearing and difficult, but it's so amazing watching tiny and sick babies grow and thrive and eventually leave. I feel like I found my calling. I also met a guy in my class when I went back to school. We were just friends for 2 years because I didn't feel ready to date. And then in 2019 we started dating. That guy is now my husband. We got married in 2022. My current husband is the most amazing man and partner I could have ever asked for. I can fully lean on him and him on me. And I don't have to ask him to please pick his socks up off of the floor. He even does most of the cooking because I hate cooking due to my cancer treatment. I went into premature ovarian failure. So we are going to start IVF in the new year with eggs I had frozen before my chemo began. We also want to adopt and or foster at some point and have been looking into that as well. I know for sure my husband is going to be a wonderful support for me and an amazing father. At the time of my divorce, I had no confidence my ex would be either of those things. I don't want to just bash my ex though. He is doing much better since we got divorced. A month after I left for good, he attempted to off himself and was put on a 72-hour hold at the hospital. He took their advice to follow up with a psychiatrist seriously and was diagnosed with ADHD. It explains so much about how he was when we were together a little later on. He was also diagnosed with autism. I don't speak to my ex because it's too painful for both of us, but my mom is still close to his mom and has given me some updates. He's taking medication that's really helped his ADHD and was able to go to trade school. He has a much better job now and has been in a steady relationship. I wish him all of the best. I look back on my old posts and all I can do is shake my head. I was putting up with so much I would never put up with now. I also though I was so grown up because I was 24 and married, but clearly I still had maturing to do. Part of me feels sad for my ex too because he was struggling for so long, and I was writing him off as unhelpful. However, even though he had a medical reason for being inconsiderate, I still had to do what's best for me and I was at my breaking point. Considering his success, I think we're better off without each other. Oh, and I still talk to my ex's friend, the cobra breeder, from time to time. Bucatini the Burmese python is still doing great in his new home, great in his new home, great in his new home, great in his